looked just like any other exhausted delivery guy. Rumpled jacket, a low-brimmed cap casting a shadow over tired eyes, dusty sneakers, and a gaze that seemed to have lost hope in anything good. No one in the restaurant gave him a second look. The staff laughed, chatted, joked like nothing around them truly mattered. But everything shifted the moment he picked up his fork and pierced the salad on his tray. The lettuce was limp and wet, soggy like it had been overhandled or drenched too long. It smelled faintly sour, the telltale scent of greens left out far past their prime. The grilled chicken was cold to the touch, lukewarm at best, clearly left sitting out too long. The avocado, darkened at the edges, scooped with bare fingers, no gloves, no caution, just someone in a hurry or someone who no longer cared. He chewed slowly, no complaints, no expression, but inside, wave after wave of disappointment churned, each bite a bitter reminder of what had been lost. None of the staff knew the man they were overlooking was Jackson Reeves, the founder of this very restaurant chain, the man who nearly 2 decades earlier had poured his soul into a humble eatery in a narrow alley, slowly shaping it into a respected name across Los Angeles. Every detail, every menu item, every standard had once passed through his hands. And now? This. He didn't need to speak. Not yet. His silence would speak louder than any outburst. In just a few minutes, that silence would erupt into a reckoning, one that would begin with this very plate of careless salad, a seemingly minor act of apathy that signaled the rot beneath. From across the street, Jackson had stood in the shadows, watching the 9th location of his chain, the one he had once proudly opened with a ribbon-cutting ceremony and heartfelt hope. Now it stood as a monument to the thing he feared most, losing control of what he built. The neighborhood had evolved beyond recognition. Sandwiched between a boutique gym and a trendy minimalist juice bar, the restaurant looked almost artificial. Glass windows, polished steel signage, ambient lighting. But something inside Jackson bristled. Under the aesthetics, something was broken. 3 weeks earlier, he had received 2 handwritten letters. Not emails, not app reviews, actual letters. One described a sad Caesar salad, runny dressing, wilted greens. The other, just one sentence. No one seems to care anymore. He'd confronted Jared Stone, the regional manager, about it. Jared laughed it off. "Jackson, this is LA. Everyone's a food critic with a blog. You can't please them all." But Jackson didn't buy it. That wasn't critique. That was a cry for help. He'd learned long ago to trust his gut, so he disguised himself, hoodie with a delivery app logo, thick-rimmed fake glasses, a beard speckled with gray. Most of the staff were new. They wouldn't recognize him. That was the point. The restaurant looked fine at a glance. Floors mopped, chill lo-fi beats playing through overhead speakers. A few laptop-wielding customers nursed smoothies or waited for pickup orders. But the energy? Cold, lifeless, not a single greeting. The cashier didn't lift his eyes from his gum-chewing trance. After a moment, he muttered, "Next." Jackson stepped up. Grilled chicken salad, no dressing. Add avocado. "That's $3 extra?" "Fine." He paid, grabbed his table number, and found a seat by the window with a clear view of the partially open kitchen. 2 girls worked the front. One looked drained, moving fast to pack a to-go order. The other, young, distracted, leaned against the fridge, phone in hand. "Arlie, can you toss the ball for table 6? The older one asked. "I'm on break," Harley muttered, not even glancing up. "You clocked in 5 minutes ago." "Yeah, break," she repeated, smug and unmoved. Jackson felt a cold shiver run through his spine. Then came another figure, broad-shouldered, shaved head, greasy apron, a faded tattoo along his neck. He shouted from the prep counter, "Where's the chicken for this salad?" "Check the walk-in. I'm not doing it," someone replied from the back. The man, Jackson would later learn his name was Miguel, grabbed a half-used chicken breast from a container sitting beside the stove. No gloves, no thermometer, no smell check. He chopped it quickly and tossed it into a bowl. Next came the greens. He reached into a bin marked spring mix, pulled out a handful of limp, yellowing leaves and flung them in. He didn't hesitate. Then, without flinching, Miguel grabbed a browning avocado half, scraped off the top layer with his fingers, and dropped it in like it was nothing. Jackson blinked hard. A slow, hot burn rose in his chest like a fuse catching fire. Miguel wiped his hands on his filthy apron, then rang the bell. "Order up." The exhausted girl, Hazel, according to her name tag, hurried the salad to Jackson's table. She placed it down gently. "Here you go. Enjoy." He nodded. "Thanks." And then, as she walked away, the man who had built everything from scratch sat in silence, ready to burn down the apathy and rebuild what once mattered. Jackson nodded. "Thank you." Hazel gave a polite nod, then quickly returned to the register. He stared at the salad in front of him. Not a word, not a movement. Then, slowly, he picked up the fork, speared a piece of lettuce, and took a bite. His palate reacted instantly. Slimy greens, chicken that was warm in a way that only improperly thawed meat could be, and avocado that had clearly passed its usable date. For 17 years, Jackson had poured everything, his time, his energy, his integrity, into building a brand customers could trust without question. And now, in a single bite of carelessly thrown together salad, that trust was crumbling. He rose to his feet, took the bowl, and walked directly to the counter. Hazel turned, startled. "Can I speak to your manager?" Jackson asked, voice calm but sharp with conviction. "Yeah, that's Kai. He's in the back. I'll get him," Hazel replied, before slipping behind the kitchen door. Jackson didn't glance at anyone else. He just stood there, still, grounded, the bowl in his hands like a weight tethering him to the moment, his breath slow, steady, holding back the storm inside. Then the door swung open. Kai stepped out, an earpiece still looped over one ear, phone in hand, clearly pulled from a call he didn't want to leave. Late 30s, tight buzz cut, sharp jawline, a gold chain resting over a branded crewneck tee. He carried the swagger of someone who had faced dozens of customer complaints and learned to deflect them with a rehearsed smile. "What seems to be the issue?" he asked, tone casually detached. Jackson held up the bowl. "I just watched your cook use unrefrigerated chicken, wilted greens, and scoop browning avocado with bare fingers. You're serving this to people?" Kai's smile wavered, eyes flicking down briefly. "All our ingredients are prepped fresh daily, sir." "No," Jackson said, gaze fixed like steel. "I saw your staff cut corners in plain sight." Kai shot a quick glance back toward the kitchen. "Okay, I'll talk to him. I can issue you a refund." "I don't want a refund," Jackson interrupted, scanning the restaurant. Only a handful of customers were present, but dysfunction pulsed in every corner. Hazel was running point at the register and bagging orders, while Harley still leaned against the fridge, scrolling aimlessly. Jackson turned back. "You're the manager here?" "Yeah. I want every kitchen staff member out here. Now." Kai's brows pulled together. "Right now?" Jackson slowly removed his cap, then took off his glasses. "Because I own this place." The silence that followed was like a detonation. Hazel froze in place, eyes wide. Even Harley finally looked up from her phone, registering the shift in the air. "I built this company from nothing," Jackson continued, voice low but weighted like iron. "And right now you're feeding people garbage and calling it lunch." Kai's face paled like he'd seen a ghost. Hazel stood completely still. Even Harley turned to face him. I'm shutting this kitchen down, Jackson declared, and we're going to figure out how the hell it got this bad. Kai hesitated for a beat too long, then turned back toward the kitchen. Miguel, out front. Now. A few seconds passed before Miguel appeared, still drying his hands on a kitchen rag, expression annoyed, like being called out in the middle of a shift was more offensive than the accusation itself. He looked at Jackson, then at Kai, then back again. You're the guy? Jackson nodded. You made this salad, right? Miguel crossed his arms. I make a lot of salads. The chicken, you grabbed it from outside the fridge? It was already cooked, room temp still fine. And the greens, you pulled them from the bin. Did you even check if they were fresh? Jackson asked, his voice steady but sharp. Miguel shrugged. Not my job. I just use what's in front of me. Hazel shifted slightly, her eyes darting between them. Harley still hadn't moved an inch. Jackson locked eyes with Miguel. How long have you been working here? 5 months. Have you been trained in food safety? Dated. Sure. There's a poster in the back. Jackson turned toward Kai. You hear that? You realize he's joking, right? Kai stayed silent. Jackson looked over to Hazel. When's the last time your station had a temperature check? Hazel hesitated. I'm not sure. Maybe the last time the health inspector came by 3-4 weeks ago? Jackson exhaled slowly, a tight breath full of disappointment and frustration that was now rising like a slow, unstoppable tide. He turned back to Miguel. Go clock out and leave. What you did here isn't acceptable. Miguel looked at Kai, silently asking for backup, but Kai didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there. Miguel scoffed quietly, untied his apron and walked toward the back door without another word. Jackson turned back to Kai, his stare like tempered steel. You knew this was happening. I didn't know he was cutting corners like that, Kai responded, voice low, defensive. No, you're the manager, you're here every day. You either didn't care or you weren't paying attention, which is worse. Still no answer. Hazel cleared her throat. I told him, she said, voice quiet. Jackson turned. Told him what? About the wilted lettuce, the chicken being left out too long. And what did he say? He told me to stop complaining. Kai's jaw tightened, but he didn't deny it. Jackson stepped back, drawing in a long breath as he looked around the dining room. The space was cluttered, not physically, but emotionally, disorganized, worn down. You could see it in the way people moved, or didn't move. All staff on shift come to the front, Jackson called out. Within a minute, 4 more employees stepped forward, a tall guy in dish gloves, a slender girl with bleached hair, a cashier with a full sleeve of tattoos, and a middle-aged line cook in thick glasses. Harley still leaned against the fridge like none of it applied to her. Jackson turned toward her. You too. She sighed, slipped her phone into her back pocket and walked forward slowly. Jackson scanned the group. How many of you think this place is being run the right way? No one raised their hand. How many of you feel like your voices are heard? Silence again, but this time heavier. He pointed to the line cook with glasses. What's your name? How long have you been here? Almost a year. You like working here? Illy looked over at Kai, then back. I used to. Not anymore. Illy glanced toward Harley, then to Hazel. Ever since Kai took over, everything changed. The shifts got tighter, people quit, and now we're short almost every single day. Hazel's been doing double shifts since last week. Hazel didn't speak. She just nodded slightly, a quiet confirmation. Jackson turned to the bleach blonde girl. Name? Tessa. I've been running the cold station alone since Monday. It's supposed to be a 2-person station. And Kai knew this. Tessa didn't answer. but her eyes said everything. Jackson turned to Kai, voice steady but edged. "Why are you running this place with a skeleton crew?" "But HQ told us to cut hours. You signed the budget. You know what corporate's sending us," Kai replied defensively, his voice tight but unyielding. Jackson met his gaze, voice cool but fierce. "My corporate team didn't tell you to ignore food safety. They didn't tell you to run your staff ragged. They didn't tell you to let someone like Harley scroll on her phone while others are breaking their backs." Kai looked toward Harley, shifting responsibility like a hot potato. "She's new. Still learning." Hazel snapped her head toward him. "She's been here 2 months. She's just not working." Jackson fixed Harley with a stern look. "Why did you apply for this job?" Harley shrugged, eyes downcast. "It's close to where I live. Do you like it?" "It's okay." Lee leaned forward. "You think okay is a reason to ignore customers, dump work on others, and stare at your phone?" Harley remained silent, the gravity in Jackson's tone enough to still her. "Go clock out. You're not a fit for this team." "What?" she muttered, shocked. "I don't need people who don't care." Hazel's eyes met Kai's, but Jackson cut her off, voice flat. "He won't save you." Harley rolled her eyes and walked away. Jackson turned back to Kai. "And you?" For the first time, Kai's voice was sharp. "Are you serious?" Jackson stared him down. "You let standards slide. You ignored warnings. You watched this team burn out, then blamed corporate and protected people who didn't deserve it." Kai had no answer. He slowly turned and walked back into the office, closing the door quietly behind him. Jackson scanned his crew. "Who here has the most experience?" "I do. Or maybe Hazel," Illy said quietly. "All right. Starting today, you're acting kitchen manager. Hazel, you're running the front of house. Agreed?" Hazel's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Yes, agreed. We're closing early tonight. I'll pay everyone their full shift." Tessa lifted her hand. Are we keeping our jobs?" Jackson nodded firmly. "Anyone who works stays." Relief washed over the group. Jackson walked to the register, opened the drawer, counted out a stack of 20s and placed it in Hazel's hand. $60, he said. "Go get something to eat. There's a diner 2 blocks down. Take an hour, then come back and we're cleaning this place from top to bottom." They stared quietly. This time the silence was clarity, not tension. Jackson rolled up his sleeves. "This mess isn't just yours, it's mine, and I'm just getting started." Illy was the first to return, his hands still faintly smelling of lemon and fryer grease from the diner down the street. As he stepped through the back door, he froze. Jackson crouched inside the walk-in fridge, clipboard in hand, a trash bin half filled with expired food and unlabeled containers beside him. "Feeling this yourself?" Illy asked softly. Jackson stood, wiping his hands on a towel. "Yes, because I can't reasonably ask anyone to clean up a mess that I allowed to happen." Illy stepped inside, nodding toward the shelf Jackson had cleared. The top 2 racks, where proteins usually go, were bare. "This section hasn't been rotated in weeks. Yesterday I saw freezer-burned chicken." "Did you report it?" Jackson asked. "Twice. I even wrote it in the kitchen log," Illy said, pointing to the mess of papers. Jackson pulled a slim binder from his back pocket. "This one?" Illy looked at the cover and nodded. "That's the one." Jackson flipped open the logbook. Empty. No entries. Not a single word recorded in the past 3 weeks. Illy sighed, weariness heavy in his voice. "My notes, they disappeared after that. I figured they'd been tossed." "They were," Jackson said quietly. "I found a pile of torn pages behind the mop sink." He rubbed at his neck, painful realization on his face. "That sounds about right." Footsteps echoed from the hallway as Hazel and Tessa entered, carrying a roll of fresh prep gloves and a spool of new food-safe labels. Hazel looked at the nearly empty bin beside them. "Should we start with dry storage?" Jackson nodded, motioning toward the back. "Everything expired goes in the trash. We'll restock from headquarters today." Tessa glanced at Jackson's clipboard. "Are you really writing all of this yourself?" "Yes," he replied, "because I'm the one who let this fall apart, and I'm the one who needs to fix it too." Hazel opened her mouth as if to speak, but nothing came out. Jackson walked down the back corridor and paused outside the office, door closed tight. Inside it was dark, stale air pressed around the frame. Unopened mail, old receipts, and a half-drunk coffee sat on the desk. He flicked the lights on. On the whiteboard, a faded message remained in blue marker. "Do more with less." Jackson stared at it long enough for memories to surface, then grabbed the eraser and wiped it clean. When he stepped back into the main kitchen, the entire crew was there. Eli, now wearing fresh gloves, scrubbed the dish station. Hazel and Tessa worked steadily through the dry storage area. Even Benny, the tattooed line cook, was methodically wiping down every surface. The atmosphere had shifted. Not cheerful, but focused, present. Most of all, there was a flicker of hope. Jackson stood at the prep counter, voice steady and authoritative. "We're going to deep clean every zone. Then we rebuild, step by step. No cuts, no shortcuts. Broken, we fix it. Missing, we replace it. Unsafe, it gets thrown out." Tessa raised an eyebrow. "All of it today?" "Do what we can now. Finish the rest before opening tomorrow." Billy picked up a bucket and headed toward the line. Hazel disappeared into the shelves. Jackson pulled the foil away from the back of the grill, revealing thick, months-old grease. Time passed without notice. By late afternoon, the kitchen smelled different. Not spoiled food, but bleach, stainless steel, and honest effort. A fresh delivery arrived. Crisp greens in sealed bags, proteins clearly labeled from the central commissary. Hazel emerged from the walk-in freezer, holding a clipboard and new thermometer. "Temps are down below 40 DFF. I logged it," she reported. Jackson nodded. "Good." He hesitated. "We don't normally get same-day restocks. How did you—" "I called the distribution center directly," he replied. "Told them to pull from reserve." She blinked. Most owners wouldn't be scrubbing fryer vents themselves. Jackson allowed a small smile. Few owners built from a hot plate and 2 pans like I did. Hazel smiled and returned to work. A few minutes later, Eli approached, sweat visible on his forehead. "Have you thought about promoting from within?" he asked. Jackson raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "I don't need a title," Eli said, "but if we're short-staffed, I can lead for a few weeks, train new hires, keep quality up." "You've been doing it already," Jackson responded, extending his hand. "Official now. Acting kitchen manager. We review it in 6 weeks. Il shook Jackson's hand firmly. "Sounds fair." By sunset, the restaurant sparkled. Light bulbs replaced, wobbly booth legs propped, receipt papers stocked at the register. Tessa wiped the soda machine with precision. Jackson emerged from the kitchen, surveying everything. For the first time in a long time, the silence felt earned. 5 minutes, he said. "Go, get water, sit down, take a breath. Then we talk about what's next." The team gathered, aprons still on, gloves dusty. No one slouched. No one reached for their phone. Jackson leaned against the counter. "The truth is, this location failed. Not because of you. I did it. I let everything drift so far from the original vision. I trusted the wrong people. I stopped showing up," Jackson confessed, voice steady, but heavy with regret. He turned to Hazel. "You tried to speak up. Nobody listened." Then to Tessa. "You've been pushed too hard. No one stepped in to help." Jackson looked at Illy with genuine respect. You saw everything crumble, and still showed up. That speaks volumes. He pulled a folded sheet of paper from his pocket and laid it on the counter. This is the hiring schedule. Next week, 2 new line cooks, 1 prep cook and 1 cashier come on board. He faced Hazel again. You'll help with interviews. You've got the best sense for who actually cares about this place. Hazel's eyes widened in surprise. Then she nodded slowly as the weight of the responsibility sank in. Tessa, Jackson continued, you'll train the new cold station hires, and for each shift you train, you'll get an extra day's pay. Seriously? Tessa asked, her voice barely above a whisper, stunned. Absolutely, he replied with a soft smile. Tessa pressed her lips together to mask her emotion. I won't let you down. Tomorrow morning, I'll be back. We'll review inventory systems, safety logs, and set up a real prep schedule. You'll run kitchen operations. Hazel didn't say a word, but she stood taller, her eyes sharper and more purposeful than ever before. And one more thing, Jackson added. I've asked someone from HR to visit. Not to reprimand, but to listen. Anonymous feedback, no punishment. Just solutions. Hazel crossed her arms, studying him. You really mean it? You'll listen to what we say? Because without you, none of this works, Jackson replied, unwavering. The room became quiet, intentionally so. Then Tessa spoke softly. Will you be here more often now? Jackson smiled. Every week, no suit, no clipboard crew, just me. He clapped once. Now go clock out. You've done enough today. Full pay. Bonus in on Friday. Tessa stretched, feeling her knees pop below her. I forgot what it feels like to leave without being pissed. Hazel grabbed her bag. I forgot what it's like to walk out before midnight. One by one, they left, stepping out lighter than they had in months. Jackson remained alone in the dining room. The walls were clean again. The oppressive tension was gone. Not everything was fixed, but the most important part had begun. He would no longer hand off his trust to others. 2 days later, things felt entirely different. The space seemed to breathe, not cooler in temperature, but emotionally lighter. LED lights radiated a warm glow. The music switched to soothing background tracks instead of harsh corporate loops. That tight electrical charge that once filled the air had melted away. Jackson arrived early, slipping in through the employee door. The back hallway smelled like lemon cleaner instead of fryer grease. Dry storage was organized, clearly labeled bins, no mystery containers. In the kitchen, Illy was finishing the morning line check, clipboard in hand. Morning, Jackson greeted. Illy gave a quick nod. All temps under 40 DFF. Grill cleaned, suppression systems reset. Logs are updated. Thermocouple installed yesterday. Marcus helped. Sharp kid. You're doing great, Jackson said. You learned from the mistakes. You know what right looks like. Hazel entered from the front, apron fresh, holding a small box. New menus arrived, she announced, passing one to him. Jackson flipped it open. Clean layout, bold allergen icons, and for the first time, explicit ingredients for every dish. No vague labels like spring mix. The Caesar now listed kale, romaine hearts, and shaved fennel. Looks great, Jackson said. Thank you for pushing on this. Hazel began stacking menus under the counter. Tessa's training the new cold station hires. She spent the whole morning without needing a cheat sheet. Jackson smiled, impressed. That's the right pace, no rush. At 11 o'clock, the doors opened. Customers filtered in. Gym-goers, a mom pushing a stroller, a young professional and business casual. Orders moved smoothly. Questions were answered with confidence. Each plate left the kitchen consistently. Jackson sat near the back, watching. He was in plain sight now, no disguise, no clipboard. But the staff didn't look for approval. They didn't need it. Just before the lunch rush peaked, a man in a sport coat approached the counter, Bluetooth earpiece still clipped in his ear. Hazel looked up. "How can I help?" He paused. "I was here last month. Salad was awful. Chicken cold. Lettuce brown. I almost didn't come back." "I'm sorry about that," Hazel replied calmly. "What did you have today?" "Same thing, grilled chicken Caesar. This time it was perfect." Hazel gave a small, relieved smile. "Glad to hear that." He tilted his head. "What changed?" She glanced at Jackson, then back. "We did." "Let her find her own rhythm," Jackson replied with gentle confidence. "No need to rush things." Tessa stepped forward, her apron damp and marked by small cuts and water spots. "She's got a steady hand, you know. Sliced that avocado into perfect, intact slices. No mush. That never happens." "What's her name?" Jackson asked, curious. "I'm Amira. She used to work at a sushi bar. She's hoping for extra hours." "She'll get them," Jackson smiled. At 11 a.m., the restaurant doors opened. The first customers flowed in. A gym-clad couple ordering grain bowls and a sharply dressed woman in a blazer asking about the salmon. "Is the salmon wild-caught?" she queried. Hazel answered confidently, without hesitation. "Yes, from our Northwest supplier. It's named right here on the chalkboard." Everything ran smoothly. No shouting, no mix-ups. Each station was light-staffed but effective. By 12:30 p.m., Jackson sat at the back of the dining area in a gray t-shirt and jeans. No hat, no disguise. The staff knew who he was now, but the customers didn't. Exactly how he liked it. A man in his early 40s, a sport coat over a collared polo, Bluetooth earpiece still in his ear, approached the counter. "Are you the manager here?" he asked Hazel. "Front of house lead for now," she replied. "How can I help you?" "I came here last month. That salad was a joke. Cold chicken, brown lettuce. I nearly didn't come back." "I'm sorry about that," Hazel said, calm and sincere. "What did you order today?" "The same thing, grilled chicken Caesar, and this time it was perfect." Hazel nodded, her composure steady. "Glad to hear that." "What changed?" he asked. She glanced back at Jackson, then returned her gaze. "We did." By 2:00 p.m., the lunch rush had begun to slow. Jackson stepped into the kitchen, where Illy was reviewing a prep checklist. "You're hitting a rhythm," Jackson noted with approval. "Still ironing out a few kinks," Illy admitted. "Marcus burned the first batch of tofu." "What did he do?" Illy chuckled, shrugging. "He tossed it, started over, didn't try to hide it," Jackson nodded. "Do you think he'll stay long-term?" "He shows up early and leaves the station cleaner than he found it." "Yeah, I think so." "Are you ready to make this permanent?" Jackson asked. Illy paused for a moment. "Are you serious?" "You've earned it. Starting next week, official kitchen manager title, salary, full benefits. And you'll train the next wave. No more one-person stations." Illy gripped his clipboard. "I didn't expect this so soon." "Neither did I, but here we are." Hazel joined them, cloth in hand. "Did you hear about the tofu?" He fessed up. "That's rare," Jackson praised. He turned to Hazel. "Are you ready to step up too?" "You mean run the front?" she asked quietly. "Scheduling, training, customer service, you already handle half of it." Hazel looked down at the counter. "Usually corporate picks people for that role." "That's changing," Jackson said firmly. "We're building from inside, from people who've shown they truly care." Hazel didn't answer immediately. "I'll train you myself," Jackson continued. "You'll have autonomy, a real budget, and a voice in how we run this place." She looked up, took a breath, and said quietly, "I'm in." Jackson gestured for them to follow him into the office. The whiteboard displayed the weekly shift schedule and a hiring priority list. He opened his laptop and turned it facing her. An automated performance report from the HR system, filled with color-coded bars and warning flags. Look at these red flags, Jackson said, pointing. Hazel studied the screen. It says I was inefficient 6 shifts last month. Well, I stayed late, covered shifts for no-shows. That's not tracked here. Right, and note how no one records why. No context, no explanation. This system only measures labor, not people, he observed. Jackson nodded. We're dropping it, store-wide, company-wide. Hazel looked stunned. You're really flipping everything? If we don't, everything we fixed falls apart again? That night, the store closed a bit later, not due to disruptions, but simply because no one was in a hurry to leave. There was no exhaustion. Instead, a calm, purposeful energy filled the space. Hazel wiped down the host's stand with intention. Ailey double-checked the walk-in temperature, even though the log was complete. Marcus reviewed the next day's prep list as if preparing for a mission. Jackson sat in a corner booth. No clipboard, no notes, just observing. Outside, the back door cracked open and a breeze carried the scent of clean grill metal and fresh herbs. One by one, employees emerged. No memo, no reminder, just a mutual sense of belonging. Imera carried a pitcher of lime water. Illy hauled a Bluetooth speaker. Tessa dragged 2 folding chairs into place. Hazel arrived last, arms crossed, eyes calm and steady. She's not just a staff member anymore. She's a leader, in every sense of the word. Jackson stepped forward carrying a crate of fresh cleaning towels and placed it down gently. Looking around the group, he smiled and asked, "Who remembers that first Friday night?" A few groans and a soft chuckle rippled through them. The printer jammed, the fryer overflowed, and someone forgot to defrost the chicken. "That was me." Marcus raised his hand half-jokingly. "Still don't see the big deal." Jackson laughed, his eyes scanning the faces around him. "But we got through it. Not because of training manuals or performance charts, but because we cared. Truly cared." He locked eyes with Illy. "You spoke up when staying silent would have been easier. You fixed problems no one else mentioned." Then he turned to Hazel. "And you? You kept pushing even when no one was listening." "That's not just a team," Jackson explained softly. "That's a foundation. No applause, just gentle smiles, exchanged glances, and Tessa's slight nod. A gesture more meaningful than any verbal praise." Jackson leaned back in his chair. "A lot of people think a shift ends when the lights go off, but I think now you understand. It was never just a shift." They sat quietly for a moment. Then Illy pulled out a Bluetooth speaker. Marvin Gaye's smooth voice filled the room like a shared embrace. Hazel laughed. "Please tell me we're not doing karaoke." "Only if Marcus starts," Tessa teased. "I'm still in prep," Marcus grinned. They all laughed softly. Quiet enough, but enough to make the place feel like theirs again. Not a plaque. Not champagne. Just people who had reclaimed pride in the space they locked up each night. 2 days later, the restaurant doors opened to a gentle morning breeze and the slow, steady pace of returning patrons. The changes weren't just logistical, they were atmospheric. Warm lighting softened the space, gentle music replaced the harsh playlists, and a deliberate calm permeated the air. Jackson arrived before the lunch rush, quietly entering through the side door. The back hallway gleamed, lemon-scented and grease-free. Dry storage was labeled, organized, rotating properly. No more corners cut, no more excuses needed. In the kitchen, Illy was completing the end-of-shift check while Marcus logged temperatures. Hazel held a quick stand-up meeting beside the register with new staff. They listened, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Jackson walked through the space silently, observing, absorbing. Mamira, stationed in the cold prep line, sliced avocado with sushi chef precision. She glanced up and offered a small nod to Jackson. No theatrics, just respectful acknowledgement. 11 o'clock. Iron doors opened. Customers flowed in, a couple in gym gear, a young mom pushing a stroller, a casual-dressed young man. Orders were handled smoothly, questions answered confidently. Plates left the line consistently and on time. Jackson took his seat near the window, visible but not central. Staff no longer sought his approval. They didn't need it. 12:45 p.m., a man in khakis and a sport coat, Bluetooth earpiece still in place, approached the counter. Hazel greeted. "How can I help you?" "I was here last month. The salad was awful. Cold chicken, brown lettuce. I nearly didn't come back." Hazel replied calmly, "I'm sorry to hear that. What did you have today?" "The same dish. Grilled chicken Caesar. This time it was perfect." Hazel let a small smile cross her face. "I'm glad to hear that." He asked, "What changed?" She glanced back toward Jackson, then met his eyes. "We changed." 2:00 p.m. The lunch rush subsided. Jackson entered the kitchen where Illy and Marcus were reviewing the closing checklist. "You're in a good rhythm," Jackson praised. "It takes a team," Illy replied. "But now, we got it." Hazel entered with the updated inventory sheet. Fresh produce list is updated, suppliers added, delivery schedule included. Jackson reviewed it. Clear, accurate. She didn't wait for praise. She moved on to the next task. A few minutes later, he invited Hazel into the office. The whiteboard now displayed training milestones, customer feedback, handwritten notes from the team. Jackson opened the performance report, still from the old system, but now packed with handwritten annotations. "This system was built to track labor efficiency," Jackson said, "but what it did was punish people who went above and beyond." Hazel nodded. "It never asked why." Jackson nodded. "From now on, performance is measured by employee retention, food quality, and team trust. Those come first, and everything else will follow." "Do you think HQ will support this?" she asked. Jackson steeled himself. "If not, they won't be part of this anymore." She didn't need to ask again. That night, after closing, the team remained, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. It wasn't duty. It was something deeper. Oh no. Chairs were unfolded. Someone brought cold drinks. Tessa joked with Marcus. Ely sat on a crate, walking Emma Mira through tomorrow's prep. Hazel leaned against the wall, arms folded, calm and content. Jackson stepped outside, empty-handed, free of clipboard or script. "What do you realize we just did?" he asked. They listened, uninterrupted. "We didn't just fix a kitchen," he said. "We repaired the culture that let it fall apart." He paused. "All companies say the customer comes first, but the truth is, if staff aren't respected, heard, or cared for, then the customer never had a chance." He absorbed it. Silent deep. "Now, we build around this." He looked at each of them, Hazel, Illy, Tessa, Marcus, each integral, each irreplaceable. No shortcuts, no blame. We are the system now. Beat of stillness. Then Tessa raised her cup. "To clean kitchens." Illy followed. "To honest teams." Hazel lifted her cup last. "And to never letting things slip again." No grand speeches, no slogans. Just people who had rebuilt a future they actually believed in. Trust doesn't vanish overnight. It erodes, tray by tray, shift by shift, silence by silence. But if you're brave enough to roll up your sleeves, stop excusing, start listening, and rebuild from the ground up, what's broken can be rebuilt, and when it's rebuilt with honesty, it lasts.